Portugal out of the World Cup. Sad to say it, but Spain scores in stoppage time. And for me, this game is the faithful representation of the history of Portugal in this World Cup. A very poor one, I must add. And the same problems crept in again today, from poor performances to mismanagement from our manager. And, if you watch the short that I did before the match, you know what I'm talking about. If not, take a quick look. And for me today, on probably the best midfield battle in this World Cup that we're going to see, the team that wins is the one that is going to make better tactical adjustments, is going to make less mistakes in the middle of the park, and the one that is going to win the key moments. That's it. Every single one of these 3 points raised came through, and Spain made the tactical adjustments. We didn't. They, in key moments, performed. We didn't. And let's break that down. Starting with the game, first half balanced. Spain starts better. We leveled. We eventually go up and have opportunities to score. I think at the end, a draw is fine. Both teams had clear opportunities to score and a few half chances. Maybe Spain has one more big opportunity than Portugal has, but generally speaking, I think the game was leveled. Second half starts Portugal a little bit better. Spain making a few mistakes in possession, which were a little bit uncharacteristic. And then we just lacked a little bit of bite up top, and we lacked a little bit of composure and connectivity, which is something that we saw too often in Portugal's performances. And then the big shift starts, because at more or less 10 minutes, 15 minutes into the second half, Nuno Mendes gets injured. And a little bit of an unlucky situation. However, I will say this. Most of this is on the manager. And hear me out, because you must be thinking this guy's crazy blaming the manager for injury. Just listen to me for a second. Nuno Mendes played 2 seasons ago. He played a full season where he went deep in cups. He went deep in the Champions League, winning the Champions League. He won the title with Paris Saint-Germain as well. Then he goes into the World Cup of clubs, which he goes all the way to the final. Then he goes next season. They play a deep run in the league where they have to win it in the last 2 or 3 games. If I'm not mistaken, they beat Lens away to win it. And then they once again go to the final of the Champions League, and they win the final again of the Champions League. This guy played a bucket load of games in the past 2 years, and he was injured towards the end of this game. So he comes into camp in Portugal this year for the World Cup, and he's already not in the best shape possible. So he's supposed to manage him. And he plays Congo the first game, he gets injured. And it was a different injury. It was not a muscle injury. It was a contact injury on his ankle, if I'm not mistaken. And he comes out minute 55, 60, something like that. And we now have 11 days between that game and Colombia. In the middle, we have Uzbekistan, a team that we should beat with him or without him on the pitch. We ended up beating them 5-0 with him on the pitch and playing 90 minutes. But why is he playing? I don't care if he's fit to play. He doesn't need to be fit to play that game. He needs to be fit and in a good shape to play the next games, which are more difficult. Colombia to win, and then knockout stages to go and win every single game. And instead, we don't. Guess what? An injury was predictable, the load was too high, and he ends up having a muscle injury. Simple. So mismanagement starts already way before this game, and this is going to be a recurring theme, because a lot of these situations were repetitive behaviors from Martinez, and this is why Portugal is where it is, along with, again, the individual performances that I will talk about later today on this video. But then we go into the adjustments, because this happens. It's a big shift with this injury and this player coming out, and how do we adjust? We have to think about defending one of the best wingers in the world, Lamine Yamal. What do? We're going to bring Dalot for sure on the left, because he's a player that can play on the left-hand side, and he probably is our best defender out of all the fullbacks that we have. No, Martinez is going to come out of the box and think something else. And what does he do? He puts in Nélson Semedo, a player that doesn't even touch the ball with his left foot ever, and he's a player that not known for his defensive acumen, and I absolutely love him, but he's not comfortable playing there, and even worse, defending there with a Lamine Yamal that can go right and left on you and connect with other players. So we adjust to this change by putting a player without any experience in that position. Then we adjust even further, because in front of him, what do? We put Rafael Leão, a player that doesn't defend. João Felix showed exactly what you have to do in that position when you're playing a player like Lamine Yamal. Nuno Mendes is going to have 70 to 75% of the moments, but I'm going to have the other 25 to 30. And he did. And he was very effective at defending Lamine Yamal when he had to. We had a couple of steals that he did in the first half and in the second half as well. And he was phenomenal. He gave so much to the team. And he was fine. He didn't look that tired. He was still quite active. And yes, I don't have the data on me, but I'll go into that topic in a second, because that is the adjustment that we do on the left-hand side. On the other side, on the other bench, somebody that actually understands the game, that Fuente goes, Dani Olmo, just go next to Lamine Yamal. And now you only play on that half space because I'm going to bring Ferran Torres from the other side. I'm going to take Baena out, a player that hugs the line a bit more. And I'm going to beat Ferran Torres, which is a forward, and he's going to play coming into the middle of the pitch. So now we almost have two cams behind the striker in Oyarzabal. And that's what he did. So immediately, Olmo attacks the half spaces on the right side, a lot more of their attack. He's close to Lamine Yamal. Now, the defenders have multiple players to think about in that area. You now can't make a 2v1 with Yamal, and you wouldn't be able to anyway because Leão doesn't defend to save his life. So all of a sudden, Portugal's manager brings the team back, and obviously De La Fuente goes and takes advantage of that immediately. And I will continue with the adjustments because we also made a change on the right side of the pitch. We took away Pedro Neto out of the game and we placed Francisco Conceição. And I'll go into that in a second, but I'm just going to say this in advance. Why are we replacing the two wide players? The game was being played predominantly in the middle of the pitch. The battle was in the middle of the pitch. And we are worried about replacing players in wide areas. By the way, Cucurella and Pedro Porro were not replaced, were not substituted. So they would be as tired as those two players that I just mentioned. So you kept them in check with those two players. Now you're no longer keeping them in check. Nobody's worried about Rafael Leão if he's not defending. They will do tons of 1v1s with Pedro Porro and Lamine Yamal, for example. And we just completely misread the game and the needs of the game. He had to focus in the middle of the park. He didn't. He focused on wide areas, and we absolutely lost the midfield battle. Then back to Francisco Conceição, because I actually love Francisco Conceição off the bench. In the right games, Francisco Conceição is a player that if your team is defending on the low block, he's going to be a menace. 20-25 minutes before the end of the game, he's coming in with a bundle of energy, low center of gravity. He can go right and left, cross and shoot and pass. Good luck stopping him is very difficult. And he scored several goals, I think, already for Portugal in the last 15-20 minutes of games coming off the bench. But that's not Spain. Spain is forcing you to play more in your half of the pitch, play more in transition when you have the ball, or to retain the ball and build slowly until you get to their box, which we did quite effectively for a good period of time in the first half. And instead, we bring in Francisco Conceição when we have a player like Trincão on the bench, a player that can manage tempos much better, super creative, super difficult to take the ball off. And we bring in Francisco Conceição, who I like very much, like I said before, for certain games, but not for this game. So again, in my view, massive misread from Martinez and poor decisions all around. And then we go into the utilization of players, because for me, the midfield that should start this game was always Vitinha, João Neves, and Bernardo Silva. And you bring in a player like Bruno Fernandes later in the game for two reasons. First, the most basic one, which is Bruno Fernandes has not performed at all in this World Cup. The only good moment that he has is an assist to Ronaldo in the game against Uzbekistan in a transition play. Then the second aspect is today, the game will eventually open up. At some point, if you're patient enough, the game will open up because Spain will want to go after it and the game will open up. Wasn't it better to bring Bruno when the game is open and he can actually sit a little bit ahead of the midfielders and be the target for transition play, and then with the ball in open space against tired legs, be able to make the difference with runs, with passes in behind, and with shots off the box, etc. No, we played him as a starter because Bruno Fernandes must have a vitality card for the first 11 of the Portuguese national team. At least he did with this manager. And that, again, kills the team because now you bring in Bernardo Silva to replace a more tired Vitinha. Bernardo Silva, who's not a defensive midfielder, makes a couple of silly fouls, one of them being the one that they scored the goal from. And eventually you are taking away, again, the orchestrator Vitinha, who was never allowed to play once again in this tournament. And you make one substitution in the middle of the park when Spain makes two and wins you the game with those two. Ferran Torres eventually inside assisting Merino for the goal that wins in the game at minute 91. So it's too much of shambolic readings and decisions from this manager who basically put away the Portuguese team much more than any opponent could. And if you don't agree with me, or if you do, leave a like, let me know where I'm wrong, because frankly, this is all I can see in this World Cup. And, before I go into anything else, I also want to say that this manager is now leaving, and this manager deserves our thank you because he still came in a way where he was very cordial and very respectful of our culture. He observed our culture in a lot of ways. He learned the language. He spoke Portuguese. He didn't come in speaking Spanish. Would have been one of the worst things that any manager could have done. He understood that. He respected the country. And then ultimately, he looks like a terrific person. And everybody speaks really highly of the human being that he is. And I'm not here criticizing that. I'm here criticizing the manager on the sidelines, and the manager on the sidelines, Martinez, was incompetent. So yes, I say thank you for everything that you did, and you did win a Nations League in probably the only moment when you showed some balls with this national team and the decisions that you made. If you don't understand what I'm saying, stay tuned for a video that I'm going to do on the Martinez tenure. Subscribe to the channel and press the bell button so you receive notifications when that comes out. And he wins that, but then both in Euros 2024 and now in World Cup 2026, the team underperforms massively. Our best players are not put in positions to succeed, and he doesn't make decisions that are tough because he didn't want any problems, and that was it. So, we go into the performances, individual performances. Look, not just today, but generally in the tournament, Diogo Costa was phenomenal. I think Ruben Dias could be a little bit culprit about the goal that they scored, but he's just in desperation mode because he has 5 or 6 players switching off in that moment. Renato Veiga improved, and he showed that he could be potentially the pairing with Ruben Dias for Euros 2028. I think Nuno Mendes was very good. I think João Neves was really good. I think Bernardo, when he came in, was okay. And today he was completely thrown to the lions. It was crazy. And what Martinez did to him as well. Others, Nélson Semedo and Diogo Dalot, when they came in, they were all right. Pedro Neto and João Felix were really good, gave so much to the team. Defensively, it was outstanding in terms of work rate, and João Felix as well showed once again, playing out of position once again, that he has so much to give to this team. And I know that the next manager is going to put him on the right position. I really believe in that. And after that, you start going downhill. Obviously, Ramos doesn't have much time. The one that he had, he scored a banger goal. Cancelo was terrible all tournament apart from one game against Uzbekistan. And Bruno Fernandes spends more time stepping on everybody else's toes than actually doing his job. Just look at the passing graphs here. The positive passes, the ones that he actually achieves to connect, are the ones sideways and backwards in wide areas in the middle of the park where Vitinha needs to operate on his own. Instead, he's there doing something. We don't know what it is still. And then when he tries to be positive and he tries to play forward, look at the passes that he misses. All passes into attacking areas, he missed. These are the missed passes in this game, but still played 90 minutes. And brings me to the last point. This had to be Vitinha's team. He's there to be the orchestrator, the regista. He's the Pirlo of our generation, not the Gattuso of our generation. Gattuso was the one that defending Pirlo's back at AC Milan, and Pirlo was there to play. And Vitinha needed that support, but this manager decided that Palhinha should be at home and not in this World Cup. Another one of these crazy decisions. But anyway, look, at the end of the day, people talked about this being a golden generation. This is not a golden generation. This is a good generation of players with a team that has some flaws and was not put in a position to really be successful. And if you look at the 2004, the 2006, those were golden generations. And if you compare, and I'll challenge you to go on the comments and leave that 11, go and see how many players from the starting 11 would start in those teams. And I can promise you, it's not more than 2. The legacy of Martinez is 4 years, no playing philosophy. 4 years and mishandling several players. 4 years and catering too much for Ronaldo playing 90 minutes and being scared of making tough decisions. So yeah, let's go to Ronaldo just to finish. Ronaldo's last match in a World Cup for Portugal, a sad day, a legacy of glory, a legacy of history, a legacy of titles, even with the Portuguese national team, a hero, a legend, an absolute icon of the sport, one of the 2 best players that I ever seen play. And for me personally, I don't have anything but thank yous to say. I said it before the tournament, as long as Ronaldo wants to play up until this point, he can. From this point on, I really think that this was the last major competition that he plays for Portugal. Age of 41, the next one he will be 43, and I think it's time, and I hope that everybody gives him the farewell that he deserves. And finally, just on Spain and on this game, wins fairly, deserved, were the more competent of the 2 teams, showed the flaws that I expect. Defensive transition was really poor once again, just Portugal that couldn't capitalize. Will they win the World Cup? Absolutely no. I think France will absolutely run riot against them, and other teams will do the same. I could think about England as well, for example, matching really well against Spain right now. And frankly, I don't see Spain going much further than France. When they meet, I think they would meet in the semifinals. So yeah, that's the reaction of this match and a little bit of this World Cup. And ultimately, I would like to say thank you if you watched up until now. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date with the releases that are coming in, and press the like button on this video and leave a comment. Let me know your opinion, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.